Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Close your eyes and let the world fade away. Tonight we drift beyond time, where gods dream and stories remember their light. In the beginning was the wind, the long breath of the east, gliding over mountains like woven silk. Within the wind slept a pulse, and within that pulse, a spark. The spark curled upon itself like a folded leaf of fire, unable to hide its light even in dream. The first to see it was the horizon, a child of dawn who had never known darkness. "Wake," whispered the east wind, soft as bamboo shade. "The ashes are calling. Your name is not born yet, but your heart remembers." The spark inhaled once, and that breath became the first word of fire spoken in the language of air. The world listened, and an ancient mountain shuddered. Thus the red dragon began to dream. The dragon broke its shell of light, scales crimson like sunset across new sky. Each wing unfolded like an idea that had waited centuries to be understood. But every birth is a departure. Mountains deepened, rivers rewrote their own stories, and names forgot their edges. The dragon breathed not to burn, but to wake stone into song. His fire was warm and listening, not hungry. Flames ran across fallen leaves and did not consume them. They remembered the pattern of roots. "I am the wind," said the east. "I do not carry you. I return your breath to you." At the valley's edge stood a village of clay and quiet bells. Each doorway held a hollow chime that sang when the wind passed through. Smoke rose from rice fields, and the sky folded the smoke back into itself like a slow prayer. The red dragon cast no shadow on the village. He folded his wings so birds might rest without fear. The wind wrote a line around him, an invisible script that read, "When fire speaks, it is because it has learned to breathe." The eldest woman in the village raised her eyes from the hearth. "An old guest," she murmured. "But this time he has learned silence." No child was afraid. Fear comes only for what has no name, and the dragon's name had not yet been spoken. Beyond the village lay a field of stone carved by centuries of wind. There, the east wind curved low, as if drawing a bowstring, and asked, "Where is the center of your heart?" The dragon looked inward. The first breath still echoed within his chest, a melody made of heat and patience. He did not listen to the flame, but to its rhythm. And the rhythm spoke, "I am not the burning. I am the haste that burns." The wind took his haste and drew a circle in the dust. "Walk within this circle," it said. "Inside, your fire will become prayer. Outside, it will become ruin." The dragon walked. With every step, his flame softened and darkened, becoming pulse instead of blaze. He remembered that heat could exist without light, hidden, steady, alive. When night fell, the bamboo groves swayed with a wind that had no direction. The dragon closed his wings and gazed into a pond. There was no fire in his reflection, only ripples breathing in time with the world. "Who am I?" he asked. The wind did not answer in words. It spoke through the croak of frogs in the rice fields. Tack, tack, wait, tack, tack, wait. In the silence between the sounds, the dragon found a room in his own heart, a place for fire to sit without burning. There he set down his name and felt its weight for the first time. Wait was the first prayer of those who choose to stay. Before dawn, the wind led him to a circle of stones. At its center lay a line of ash, thin as a hair, a path that only patience could see. "No one has walked here," said the wind. "Those who do leave their breath behind." The dragon breathed without summoning fire. Warmth flowed through the stones, and from their cracks rose not smoke, but a red flower, a memory of flame that had chosen not to consume. "The east of your heart," whispered the wind, "has begun to open." When the dragon returned to the village, the old woman was skimming foam from her soup. He lifted the hearth flame just a little, no more than a finger's height. "Thank you," she said without looking up. The bread was turning to stone. In that moment the dragon understood. Great fires write legends, but small warmth writes life. And the wind sang through the clay bells of every doorway. Later, a shadow of news rode on the wind. Far away a city burns. Its furnaces roar with pride. Its skies have forgotten rain. The flame there no longer breathes. It demands. The dragon did not spread his wings. He walked within the wind itself, for it now carried his own breath forward. Across mirrors of water and fields of stone, he came to a gate of smoke. No words were written there, only a fallen leaf and a spark sleeping beneath it. He heard the spark whisper, "Haste is fire, patience is flame." The city burned bright and hungry. Smoke tried to build a ladder to the sky, and the sky waited, not knowing where it would lead. "Should I tell them my name?" he asked. "No," said the wind. "First give them your breath. Names will come after." The red dragon stood before the city and exhaled. Long, slow, and without flame. The smoke unraveled. The furnaces still glowed, but their anger softened into warmth. Fire became baking instead of burning, creation instead of pride. A child looked up from a window and saw a line of rose light stretch across the eastern sky. Not red, but alive. The east wind sighed. "The heart of the east," it said, "has arrived." And the red dragon, without ever speaking his name, became the heartbeat of the east. From afar, the city was a crown of embers nailed to the horizon. Chimneys roared like wounded animals. Furnaces talked to themselves in the language of pride. The sky above bore the smudge of 1,000 hurried decisions. The red dragon did not rise into the smoke. He walked within the east wind, step by patient step, so that the streets would feel his weight before the flames felt his name. At the gate, Ash tried to write a welcome but coughed and forgot its letters. The wind read what the ash could not. Help, written in heat. In the market, vendors shouted over the hiss of iron and oil. Bread was baked too hot, too fast. It wore a crust like armor and hid a frightened heart of dough. Children learned to blink through soot. Elders timed their breathing to gaps in the smoke. A blacksmith hammered. Clang, breath, clang, breath. But the breaths were short, bitten, unkind. His forge glowed white with hurry. The dragon stood beside him without shadow. "Your fire is strong," he said gently. "Your breathing is small." The blacksmith frowned. "Strength feeds a city. Strength fed by haste becomes hunger," said the wind through the dragon's voice. The dragon exhaled once, long and cool. The bellows softened. The forge lowered from fury to warmth. Sparks turned from screams into songs. "Try now," said the dragon. The blacksmith struck again. The metal sang a lower note, truer, like rain finding its river. He did not thank the stranger. His hands did. They loosened. The dragon moved as water would move through fire, slowly with memory. In a bakery, ovens raged like impatient kings. He lifted their heat by a single breath's height, then settled it back down as if laying a child to sleep. Loaves rose without fear. Someone laughed for the first time that day. In a glassblower's shop, a young woman trembled when her molten vessel drooped. "Hold," the dragon murmured. "Let the wind carry the weight for 3 heartbeats." She waited. The shape steadied, lengthened, became a curve worthy of dawn. Tears fogged her goggles. She blamed the heat and smiled. Every place he passed, the same lesson. Not less fire, but longer breath. The city did not cool. It remembered. At noon, the magistrates summoned him to the hall of heat. Pillars there were carved with flames that licked upward forever. A brazier burned at the center, unblinking, like an eye that refused to close. "Stranger," said the first magistrate, "you interfere with the engines of our prosperity. Our furnaces must roar. Our glass must harden quickly. Our steel must be impatient." A second added, "Speed is virtue. Flame is law." The red dragon bowed without lowering his gaze. "Speed is what flame becomes when it has no friend," he said. "Breath is friendship. Without it, fire devours the hand that feeds it." They laughed the way people laugh when the truth asks for a chair. "Prove it," said the first. "Tame the central fire. If it quiets, we will listen." The brazier watched. It had eaten many oaths. The dragon stepped forward. He did not flex his claws or spread his wings. He closed his eyes and found the circle the wind had once drawn in dust. Inside that circle, his flame had become prayer. He stood there again, not on the marble floor, but in the room he carried within his chest. He breathed in as the east. He breathed out as the hearth. In patience, out warmth. The brazier brightened, furious at first, as if insulted by calm. Then the wind slipped between the coals the way a lullaby slips between syllables. The flame lowered, not weaker, but wiser. The heat spread outward, evenly, until the hall itself sighed. The magistrates did not speak. The silence introduced them to their own lungs. At last the first magistrate whispered, "What do you ask?" "Teach your city to breathe," said the dragon. "Not once, but always." Lessons began at sunset. Chimneys learned to pause. Bellows learned to listen for the moment just before anger. Cooks counted to 7 before stirring. Smiths to 5 before striking. Glassblowers to 3 before turning the pipe. Children played a new game. They stood in a circle and exhaled together until a paper lantern rose from their hands and hovered like a small obedient moon. They called it borrowing the East. Not all approved. A guild of coal merchants protested, "If fire's calm, We sell less. The dragon met them by the river where the water wore the color of rust. Profit is fire's eldest cousin, he said. Invite it to dine, but don't let it sleep in your bed. They did not understand, but they remembered. Memory, too, is a form of breath. On the third night, a storm approached from the mountains, a tantrum of sky, young and loud. Lightning stitched its name across the clouds. The city braced to choke. The red dragon rose at last, not in spectacle but in service. He climbed no higher than a bell tower and wrapped himself around its stones. His body became a conduit. His breath became a corridor. When the first bolt struck, he guided it into the river's wide patience. When the second came, he gave it to the furnaces that had learned humility. They glowed like suns that had discovered dusk. Rain arrived, astonished to find welcome. People stood in doorways, wet and unafraid. The storm wrote its last line, then bowed to the east. Dawn unveiled a city that looked the same and felt different. Smoke still rose, but it wove itself thinner, kinder. Bread cooled on windowsills with a softness that invited hands. Metal carried the memory of thunder without the posture of war. The magistrates placed a clay bell in the square. When wind touched it, the bell sang a single low note that could not be hurried. They called the note law of breath. The blacksmith from the first morning found the dragon near the gate. "I made this," he said, offering a small iron token. A circle with a line of ash engraved within. "For the road," he added. "So you remember to come back." The dragon accepted. "I do not leave," he said. "I lengthen." The blacksmith did not understand, but he felt taller. As the red dragon turned eastward, the city exhaled, a sound like gratitude borrowing the shape of weather. The east wind touched his brow. "Well done." "Where next?" he asked. The wind answered with the taste of pine and glacier, of cranes lifting slow over reed beds, and of a mountain lake so clear it remembered the face of the moon. "North," whispered the wind, "where fire has never learned to speak and ice refuses to listen." The dragon smiled, and the road ahead unfurled like a red silk taught to behave. He did not spread his wings. He walked, because walking leaves warmth where flying only leaves shadow. Behind him, the city kept burning, not too bright but bright enough for bread, for tools, for lullabies. And above it, the sky wore a thin line of rose light, alive and patient, the east still teaching. The road north rose like a prayer made of stone. Mist lay thick over its shoulders. Cranes drifted through it like moving brushstrokes. The red dragon followed the scent of rain before it existed. His claws left no marks. The wind erased them as he passed. The east wind whispered, "Here, the world remembers its first silence." The dragon nodded. Even his breath grew slow, respecting the thin air. Above him, the peaks glowed faintly with trapped lightning, as if the sky had tried to strike the earth but changed its mind halfway. At the foot of the tallest mountain stood a lake, still, deep, and black as ink. The villagers called it Mirror of the Storm. They said every bolt that ever fell here was swallowed whole. Its fury turned into patience beneath the surface. The dragon touched the water, quivered, not from fear but memory. He saw faces, the city he had left, the bell of clay, the blacksmith's loosened hands. Their warmth traveled through the water, seeking its reflection. A voice rose from below, heavy as rain clouds. "Who disturbs the mountain's sleep?" "I am the breath of the east," the dragon answered. "I've come to learn how silence survives thunder." The water folded inward, and from it rose a figure made of stormlight. It was neither man nor mountain, both. Its skin was granite veined with lightning, its eyes two calm rains. "I am Yamatatsu, keeper of the storm that once forgot to fall," it said. "For ages I have held the sky's anger so the valleys could dream." The red dragon bowed. "Then I have come to thank you." "Thanks," said the mountain, "is a fire that burns backwards. What do you seek instead?" "To learn how light can roar without destroying its echo." The mountain laughed, and the sound cracked the mist in half. "Then climb," it said, "but bring no flame." The path wound upward through cliffs of black stone. Every few steps the dragon passed an old offering, a cracked lantern, a feather of bronze, a bowl filled with rainwater. He carried nothing but his breath. When thunder growled, he did not hide. He bowed his head. Each roar passed through him like a teacher correcting a student's name. By dusk, he reached a ledge where lightning slept in glass. Frozen bolts hummed faintly, trapped midair like music paused mid-note. The dragon extended a claw and felt warmth, not shock. "Even anger wants to be understood," said the wind. As night fell, the storm awoke. Thunder cracked open the sky's ribs, and rain poured like a confession. The mountain's voice rolled beneath it all. "Breathe, dragon. Do not fight the strike. Invite it." The red dragon inhaled. Lightning struck, straight through him. For a heartbeat the world went white, but where fire might have burned, breath received. The bolt traveled through his chest into the lake below. The water shone gold, calm, unbroken. The dragon exhaled. Not smoke, not flame. Lightning softened into warmth. The mountain watched in silence. "You did not defy the sky," it said. "You completed it." When dawn came, the air smelled of wet stone and clarity. The mountain's figure stood again, dimmer now, its work done. "Tell the east," it said, "that storms are not anger, they are unspoken truth." The dragon bowed once more. "And what of you?" "I will rest until the next heart forgets how to listen," said the mountain. "For silence is not the end of thunder, but its beginning." The dragon turned toward the rising sun. A single drop of rain clung to his horn, flickered, then glowed, a memory of lightning tamed by patience. He descended without haste. At the lake's edge, cranes waited, their wings pale with morning. The east wind brushed his scales. "You have learned stillness." The dragon smiled. "No, I have learned movement that does not escape itself." He stepped into the wind, and it folded around him like a robe. Behind him the mountain sighed, a sound like thunder remembering to breathe. Beyond the mountain the world turned to crystal. Snow fell without sound, drifting like forgotten thoughts across valleys of white. Even the east wind spoke more softly here, as if words might shatter. The red dragon moved slowly, steam rising from his scales like whispers of old fire. He did not fear the cold. He feared only forgetting how warmth had felt. When he exhaled, the frost shimmered into faint red halos that dissolved before touching the ground. They looked like lanterns that could not bear the sky. At twilight, He reached a frozen lake that stretched farther than sight. The surface was glass, its depth unknowable. The wind circled above it, hesitant. "This is the heart of winter," it murmured. "Beneath it sleeps a song older than fire." The dragon bent close, touching the ice. A hum answered, deep, slow, patient. It was not a melody but a pulse, a heartbeat of the world before light. He closed his eyes. In that sound, he felt the silence of all things waiting to become. From the edge of the lake came figures cloaked in furs. Their faces were painted with frost ash. Their eyes carried the weight of long seasons. They bowed not in worship but recognition. "Our ancestors told of a breath that once warmed the ice," said their elder. "But it vanished when men began to hunt the sky for flame." The dragon inclined his head. "I am not their flame. I am what comes after." The elder smiled faintly. "Then perhaps you can wake what sleeps beneath our feet, the song that keeps winter kind." That night, they gathered around a pit of snow instead of fire. The dragon lay beside them, his body glowing faintly under the stars. No one spoke. Words were too loud for this place. When the moon reached its highest breath, the ice began to sing. Low like a wail beneath the world, a vibration that moved through bone, through memory, through dream. The villagers pressed their palms to the frozen surface. Tears froze before falling. The dragon lowered his head and listened. It was a song of waiting, of water remembering it was once cloud, of silence promising that spring would not forget its way back. The wind stirred. "Will you answer?" it asked. The dragon nodded. He inhaled the cold until it became part of him, then exhaled, not flame, but breath warm enough to tremble the frost. Beneath the ice, something shifted. A faint light bloomed, blue at first, then white, then gold. The hum rose an octave, turning into melody. The villagers gasped. Beneath them, rivers woke like sleeping serpents, their scales glittering beneath the ice. They flowed without breaking it, life moving beneath stillness. The east wind whispered, "You gave warmth without melting. That is patience's song." The dragon smiled. "I have learned from the mountain." But the lake was not done. A figure of ice rose from its center, clear as glass, eyes like mirrors. Its voice was both echo and origin. "I am the memory of water," it said. "All things that burn must one day cool, and all that freeze must one day remember their motion." It placed a hand on the dragon's brow. "You carry the balance now, the breath between storm and stillness." The dragon bowed. "And what should I do with it?" The spirit answered, "Teach fire to wait, and teach ice to listen." As dawn came, the villagers found their wells full again, their crops free of frostbite. No flame had touched their land, and yet the earth breathed warmer. The red dragon stood upon the frozen lake one last time. Where his shadow fell, the ice glowed softly red, not breaking, only remembering heat. He whispered to the wind, "When patience meets silence, the world learns to heal." Then he turned south, for even dragons must carry warmth back to those who have forgotten it. The east wind followed, carrying the faint echo of the song beneath the ice, a melody that promised, "Even stillness has a heartbeat." The red dragon journeyed south again, through valleys washed with spring. The earth had forgotten winter's grip. Buds pushed through old frost like gentle rebellions. Every step he took left behind a soft mist that smelled of rain and smoke. The east wind hovered beside him. "You've taught fire to wait and ice to listen," it said. "What will you teach yourself?" The dragon smiled without heat. "Perhaps that flight is not escape, but the longest form of breathing." In the center of a wide plain stood a temple made entirely of ash, gray but glittering when the sun fell right. Within its walls, priests tended small flames that never grew nor faded. They called these flames the sleeping birds. When the dragon entered, they bowed with fear disguised as reverence. "You walk as the ancestor of our fire," their leader said. "Will you wake the birds?" "I will not wake them," said the dragon. "I will teach them to dream." The priests did not understand, but they stepped aside. For wisdom and madness share the same sound before they speak. He walked through the hall of flames, each candle a heartbeat held too long. They flickered not from wind, but from their own loneliness. The dragon lowered his head and whispered, "Sleep is not the end of fire. It's the breath it takes before becoming sky." At that moment, the air shifted. The flames bent toward him like flowers to sunlight. Each one rose slightly from its lamp, as if testing a forgotten muscle. The priests watched in awe as the sleeping birds began to lift, one by one, small orbs of light rising into the rafters, singing without sound. But not all dreams are gentle. From the largest brazier emerged a flame that refused to soften. It was white and sharp, like the memory of pain. "I am the first fire," it roared, voice splitting the stone. "I was born to burn the world clean. Why should I dream when my purpose is destruction?" The red dragon did not retreat. He folded his wings and bowed his head. Because destruction is a child of fear, dreaming is a child of trust. The fire snarled. "Trust kills flame." "No," the dragon said softly. "Trust teaches it to fly." He exhaled slowly, and his breath wrapped around the first fire like a cradle. The white flame shuddered, then rose above its brazier and split into 1,000 tiny sparks that spiraled upward, glowing crimson and gold. The priests fell to their knees as light filled the sky like a flock of newly born stars. When the sky was bright with their ascent, the east wind sighed. "They dream of flight now. Will they ever return?" The dragon looked up and saw the sparks forming a path toward the dawn. "Only if we forget to breathe," he said. "For fire never leaves. It waits for invitation." A soft rain began to fall, and the flames did not die. They merged with the rain, each drop glowing like a memory that had forgiven itself. The priests cried without knowing why. The dragon watched them and understood. Even those who guard flame can forget how to feel warmth. As night returned, the sky was no longer empty. The sparks had become a new constellation. A dragon curved across the heavens, its wings made of light and dreams. The wind whispered, "They've named it after you." The dragon shook his head. "No. They've named it after what I learned to be." The wind laughed quietly. "And what's that?" He smiled. "A flame that no longer needs to burn to shine." At dawn, the temple stood empty. The priests had left their lamps open to the wind, and the sleeping birds were gone. Only ash remained, warm to the touch, soft as memory. The dragon walked through it silently. Each step breathed new life into the dust, which rose and drifted into the sky as if following its children. The east wind spoke. The south waits, where flame meets sea and the air learns to forgive its own heat. The dragon nodded, turning his eyes toward the horizon. Then let's teach the sea to remember light. The sea waited like a mirror between worlds. Waves rose and fell in long, breathing sighs, carrying fragments of the dragon's reflection. He had followed the wind through storm and silence, through flame and frost. Now even the wind had quieted, as though it too wished to listen. On the horizon, the sun crouched low, not rising, not setting, a coin between fingers of cloud. "This is the edge of all things," said the wind softly. "And yet," the dragon answered, "it feels like the center." The east wind circled him once, then stood still for the first time since creation. "You have walked farther than breath was meant to go," it said. "You have seen fire wait and water remember. Do you know now what you are?" The dragon looked toward the sea. In its surface he saw every journey reflected. The city's light, the mountain's storm, the frozen lake's song, the temple's firebirds. They all moved within him like distant constellations. "I am not flame," he said. "I am the pause between flame and breath, the moment the world remembers balance." The wind smiled, a feeling, not a sound. "Then you are ready." From beneath the water rose a low hum, the song of the deep, the first echo of the world. It rolled over the dragon's scales like a tide remembering the moon. He closed his eyes and let it pass through him, and for the first time he felt the heartbeat of the earth and sky as one. The sea began to glow, not blue, but red and gold, as though dawn had spilled beneath the waves. The dragon spread his wings, but not to fly. He lifted them in offering, as a bridge between sky and sea. The east wind breathed through him, the same breath that had called him into being at the dawn of fire, and the world exhaled with him. Across the horizon, the stars dimmed. Night gave way to a new kind of light, not sunrise, not sunset, but continuance. A warmth that neither burned nor faded, a rhythm without hurry. "Will you leave?" asked the wind. The dragon's voice was gentle as surf. "No, I will become the breath you once lent me." And so his form began to dissolve. First his claws, then his wings, then the long curve of his body. He became mist, then air, then silence. Only his eyes remained for a moment longer, twin embers of knowing. "Carry me," he whispered. "Wherever there is patience, let me be flame. Wherever there is fire, let me be breath." The east wind rose, vast and tender, gathering him into its endless motion. Across plains and mountains, cities and oceans, it carried warmth into empty hearths, songs into still lakes, light into the spaces between storms. In every breath of dawn, a trace of red shimmered, the memory of a dragon who learned that peace burns brighter than fire. And in the farthest east, where the world first opened its eyes, a child sat before a small hearth. The coals glowed softly, neither fierce nor weak. When the child blew gently, the fire rose as if listening. Outside, the wind changed direction, returning home, and the end of the dream of the red dragon, the heart of the east wind.